in digital school, you have to have your first thing is your own learning management system. I keep some, I let go some, but at the same point of time, I think these three people have really left a very big impact in my life.
Hello and a very warm welcome to Great Principles. I am Seema Choria. I bring to you another celebrated figure from the world of Indian academia. A winner sees an opportunity in everything and seizes that moment to rewrite success stories that are inspirational. When other schools are still flabbergasted and trying to find a foothold in this crazy pandemic situation, our guest today made a bold attempt to revolutionize the worst to make it her best. She didn't start online classes like other schools. She headed a full-fledged online school, Cyborg School, a first of its kind in India. Well, it's all in the name. So without any delay, let's meet our guest, Ms. Supreet Kaur, Principal and Director, Cyborg School, Haryana. Welcome to Great Principles, ma'am. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you so much for bringing me up here so that we can talk and we can bring out what is required as the need of the time today. Thank you for getting me here.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So going ahead, ma'am, with the conversation, first we would like to know something about you. Your once upon a time was a teacher, trainer profile. Why did you choose education as your career?
Well, Seema, frankly telling you, education as a career had come to me very naturally. You know, I think probably even as a child, I was always enjoying teaching others than learning myself. But ideally, I moved out in a direction where I was very interested in reading from a very young age. So that's from where I started, having all the background of understanding literature and then moving on. And I also did my master's in communications. So I always wanted to enter an industry where it was either an advertising industry or an education industry, and that was the two paths that I was always confused as an you can say as a child, as a student at that point of time. But I think education happened very gradually. I think it runs in the history. My grandfather has been an educationist, and he was in his times, that was like almost a century ago now, he was heading as principal of IIT. So I think it runs in the family, and this is something that really gives me an opportunity to make a change. So for me to be stagnant with something is very difficult as a personality, as a person. So I think this really was something that I was looking forward to, and this helps me touch the lives of so many kids, wherein we can really bring a change as to what we need to see as a society in the coming years. So that's how I landed up with it.
Yes, definitely, ma'am. Very rightly said that education is something which shapes the child to be a better citizen. And when we do take it from formative years, that is where when we can expect some change coming in. So yes, definitely the only profession which can help you to achieve that change. Yeah. So going ahead, ma'am, you have also worked in corporate education sector, and we know your success stories are inspirational. So what made you shift from corporate to K-12?
Oh, when I think, I have been always into when we say education corporates, Seema, what we really need to understand is education corporates are very much a part of schooling structure.
Right.
Whatever they do in terms of helping schools, supporting schools. I'm not saying they're not doing business. Yes, they are doing business, but at the same point of time, they play a very important role in terms of let's say publishing, right? A publication works on developing content, and content is backbone of a school. So when I really and trust me, I haven't really thought of it much while I've made this move and said that I have to move from schooling to corporate and then back to schooling. Really not a thought of process for me. But I personally believe that you have to be in a place where whatever knowledge you acquire in the years of your work experience have to be used and utilized. So while I was in the corporate sector of education, and trust me, it was a difficult change when I made it from schooling to corporate, because schooling structure is very small. When I say that, teachers are interacting with a couple of teachers which are within the school, but then when you move out of that schooling structure and you land up in a corporate structure, you get to meet a very wider zone of people, the genre of people that you get to meet. And for me, for all these last 11 years or 12 years that I've been into corporates, it has been an experience of working with the administrations of school, teachers of school, and the students as well. So it is almost touching the life of closer to 5,000 plus teachers, understanding what they go through, what kind of help they require, where is the support structure. Also understanding the demographics that we have of our country. What kind of regions do we fall in? What categories of schools do we have? What categories of students do we have? Where, what, when is required to be done? So this move that has happened from the corporate to schooling is primarily to understand that, we cannot keep ourselves focused on only the metro cities of our country. We can't say that education will only be in Delhi or Bangalore or Hyderabad. We have to go beyond it if we want to make it an inclusive society that we always deal for in the real sense. So this move from corporate to my K-12 sector is a very, very, I will say a strategic move in the terms of all that I have learned, capacitated with myself for the last 11, 12 years, I'm bringing into action now. I'm fortunate, that past couple of 6-7 months, the kind of response that we have got, it's adding on to the confidence, it's making me feel that the decision is right. So it's all about utilizing of what you learn. It doesn't make any sense to keep it in a closed box. So that's why this move is there.
Absolutely, ma'am. Empowering others with what you have, that is something, that defines a true leader. And that is the quality which really uplifts a person, and when he looks forward for empowering others too. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. So going ahead, ma'am, there has been, you are managing and covering every aspect of leading a school digitally, which is very, very different. When you talk about other educators, for them, imagining something, definitely pandemic has opened the doors to it. But still, it is like, can't imagine a completely digital school. So please tell us, how do you manage this?
Oh, it's been a roller coaster ride, trust me. We started sometime in the month of October, and we were very, very keen and very, very sure that, while we are starting with this and we want to do this, we always kept in mind what is the need of the time. So when you say a digital school, I personally feel it is more difficult than running a physical school, because in physical school, you have a structure, the students are coming, the classes are happening, they're going back. In digital school, you have to have, your first thing is your own learning management system. I was very sure from the day one, I do not want to work on the structure where I have a combination of 4-5 things and my teachers are struggling to teach through them. So I needed my own learning management system. And making your own learning management system is probably the most difficult task, I will say, because that is, that is where your ERP and your learning solution comes at one place. So whether it is teaching through that content or putting your videos or audios or your artificial intelligence, and then training so many people on how to work on it, and training the parents and the students simultaneously, because if the parents and the students aren't trained on how to work through that learning management system, it completely falls off, it will not work out. So I think that's the first point. Your learning management system has to be really robust, really robust. Then the channel that you develop with your parents. It's I think the biggest issue that came in the time of pandemic was that parents felt that, I can see on the screen what the teacher is doing, but I don't understand what is going on in the class. What topic is being dealt, what homework is being given, what assignments have to come, how do they have to be uploaded or sent, where is my child, at what learning goal, what learning layer, what positioning, what skill. So we have a very, very robust system of communication along with the learning management system. So Sometimes I wonder with growing numbers, I will have to have a very big team also with me. But at this point of time, like every Friday, that's the day that we have, we send a mail to our parents, giving them a feedback on what's been done the last week and what is going to come to the next week. And that is a particular timing. It's Friday, 6:30 p.m. It goes on Friday, 6:30 p.m. It has not faltered for a day. We have developmental discussions, and that is done one-to-one with each child. So for the number of students we have, we spread it out through the month, and we really sit with the child, listen to the developmental goals that we are on. We make the strategies with the children. We help them make their strategies so that they can work upon it. We have all the WhatsApp broadcasting groups with our parents class-wise, so that every communication that goes on mails is going on the WhatsApp broadcast groups as well. Same way, we had to do the notifications on our apps. So when you come to a digital school, you have to plan yourself for every single aspect of schooling, whether it's your learning management system, whether it's your applications. Understanding on what all devices can your school work is very important. There will be children who will be working on a laptop. There will be children working on tab. There will be children working on mobile phones. So is the system supporting all? The biggest struggle that I saw was that, a child has an Apple MacBook at home and the parent gave it to him, ki ye iPad pada hua hai, it's lying there, why use them for your classes? And half the functions don't work on it. Absolutely. So we have to, as a school, we have to understand that we will have to align ourselves with what is available at home with people and then give them the best out of it. So, while we were in this process of our LMS, being made and our app being made, we kept into mind that every single device that can be available to a child should be able to work on it, whether it can be just a basic Android mobile phone to something like an iBook, a MacBook. So, we have to be really, really, really thorough with our, what you can say as the systems and the processes that you're going to set. Once we do that, then comes your curriculum, then comes your teacher training, then comes your student training. So all this has to be done in a very, very systematic manner. You can't just get up today and say that, oh, it is Raksha Bandhan coming, let's do a celebration with our children. No, we need to have our academic calendars in place. We still need to have all the celebrations happening. We can't leave the life skills part. We really cannot. What has happened, unfortunately, with digital schooling coming into place was that English, Hindi, math, everything was happening. But somehow we forgot that we need to do a dance, we need to do a music, we need to do a arts, we need to do a theater, we need to do a life skill programs with children. And even though they are in the timetables of schools, unfortunately, those periods are getting wasted. That's what bothers me as an educationist. So we have to be really, really thoughtful of every single aspect that should go in digital schooling. And I think it's about planning. If you are pre-planned, if you know that my school begins in April and my planning for the whole year is sorted by 15th of March, then I can run my school from April. Otherwise, I cannot. It cannot be a planning that you do at every stage. So for me, bringing the digital school into form, I think from October to, let me say, March, we were like spearheaded, sitting in our office from 9 a.m. in the morning till 7 or 8, 9 in the night with my team, and that's how we have done it. And trust me, we are learning every single day out of it. Every single day is a new learning because it comes with its own challenges, and they're huge. There might be a time when internet just goes off. And this is completely out of the control. We can't do anything about it. We might have 10 lines, and even if one goes off, the 2 classes will get affected. And and as parents, they are right. For them, it's their child missing a class who will be creating a panic at home. The parent will get panicked. And we have to also deal with the fact that that is point of the time when we have to come to a solution within the school premises. And then we also have to make sure that the parents understand that it's going to be handled, and we need to calm down and we need to let it settle down for some time. So it comes as own share of, challenges. I deal with uh, closer to 200 emails a day. And any parent who emails us, and parents have the right to get connected with me, email me directly. The response time that we have is 12 hours. We will never bring it beyond that because the parents will have to get the answers for their questions. So actually, I think digital school brings all of this on platter.
Ma'am, it's to me, it sounds like a physical school and digital school, two schools together you have to run.
Yes. Yes.
All the things that happen in physical school, making it happen digitally. And also, as you said, the planning is a key element of the success of the school. But along with the planning, a foolproof plan fails if it is not executed. And for execution, we really need great leaders like you who can take up such challenging tasks and guide the team further. So it is a combination of all the teamwork and a lot of execution work which goes in.
Absolutely, absolutely. It can't be done without team, and I'm blessed to have a wonderful team. I'm a part of, the directors of the organization for that matter, or the teachers that I have, or the admin staff that I have. They have worked relentlessly to happen, and they are working every single day. So definitely, this is a team effort. I believe that as a leader, if you can't take your team along in your growth, doesn't matter then where you go, because at the end of the day you can't be you can't be somebody who can achieve everything alone. It is impossible.
Absolutely, you cannot be a soloist today if you think that you are never going to succeed.
Absolutely.
Yes. So going ahead, ma'am, there are a lot of recognitions and awards that you have been bestowed for your great work and good work. So ma'am, do you plan to bring the same glory to Sciword School too?
Trust me, the most glorious I feel is when my student from years ago, when I was myself a 22 or 23-year-old girl, comes back to me and say, "Do you remember me? I remember you because you left a mark on me." That's the biggest glory, and that brings a kind of a smile that is probably the best I could feel at that point of. I really, really, really look forward that this school that we have really taken up this initiative in pandemic doesn't end up in pandemic. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Nowhere I have the plans to say that once the pandemic goes away, this digital school will go away. Not at all. We have to understand this might have originated from the past, but this is here to stay. Because for us, the quality is something that we want to reach every nook and corner of the school, every nook and corner of the tree. So it really should matter that I can pay a hefty fees or not. It really shouldn't matter as what is the building or the structure of the school. What should really matter is the quality of teachers in the school. What should really matter is what you can get in the least price, the least fee structure. So, people have there have been school leaders who have come back to me and said, how are you surviving in this kind of fee structure?
Right.
They have really come back to me and told me this, how do you survive? And I say that I don't want to survive. It's okay. Right now, for me, it is about the fact that I want that no child in this pandemic should remain away from the focus and say that I didn't learn anything during this time. But even in the long run, I just want that whatever be, I want to reach the nook and corner of this country. It's okay. You can't pay a hefty fees. It's fine, but you can still have a very good education. For me to do this, definitely I need a bigger volume of students, because the kind of marginal fee structure I have in my school, I will be only able to survive myself and my team if I have a bigger number of children with me. But trust me, that's a target that I have set for myself. That's the target I've set for my school. And I want to achieve this target from the good work that we do. It has to, it will take time. I know it will take time. It's something new for everybody in the country. Our country was not ready for digital schooling at all. But over the time, talk about the school and say what the school does, I think there's no looking back. So definitely, I'm very, very hopeful that the school will have a very prestigious name for itself, not for its building, not for its structure, not for its glamour, but for what it does with its children and where the children land up once it, leave out from Psychot. So that's what really I'm looking forward to.
All our best wishes, ma'am, to this visionary school of yours, wherein you're planning to make quality education affordable to those also where education couldn't reach, our rural areas, our underprivileged children. Hopefully, technology is reaching in every corner, and maybe after 2-3 years, we see more penetration.
Absolutely. In fact, we are really aiming at Seema getting government organizations with us, because at the end of the day, till the time we don't get the support from the government, it will be very difficult for us to, let's understand, when I go to a school, what I look forward is, where this from, does it have a government affiliation or government recognition or not? For us, we are primarily requiring that the governments, they jolt up and wake up and, come to the fact that we are living in a different world today, and we can't shut our eyes to the fact that the children are not going through the same phase that they were going earlier. So we are really working on this, and with the kind of response that we are getting from a couple of governments that we have reached out to, we are very, very hopeful, really hopeful that government organizations working with us, governments working with us very soon. And it will be the need of time for us, for sure.
Yeah, ma'am, very rightly said. The pandemic has already, shaken the entire education system, and now we need to be prepared. So whatever be may come, learning must go on.
Yeah, definitely. We can't go away with the fact that, and I really hope, we all hope the third wave doesn't comes in, but if it, are we ready for it? So it's not only about ready with mask. Are we ready to deal on with a life a year or two? And if that is the case to happen, I think we really need to help ensure that our children are mentally happy, that emotional well-being of children are taken, not feel left out, bored, burdened. So yes, so I'm really looking forward that our governments come in support, and we can take it to another aspect altogether.
Definitely, ma'am. As the hard work put in by you, it will definitely reach to where you wish to be. All the best wishes to you. So going ahead, ma'am, this makes me to reach the very interesting segment of the show, which is called Rapid Fire Round. Here we will have some fun facts revealed about you to our audience. So you have to answer in one word only.
Okay.
Here goes the first question. Who was your favorite teacher at school?
Oh, Miss Tamanna. She was my English teacher. She used to, so I used to, write the spelling of people always wrong. I used to write it as people when I was in grade 5, and she used to, I'm from a convent school, so she used to hit me on my knuckles, but I love her. Yeah.
So here goes the next question. What is your leisure time activity?
I love reading, and I am also, for me, dancing is like my way of, out all the vent in me. So I love reading, dancing, and I write. For me, that's a diary that I don't open to anyone, but I write a lot. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we have someone who is a reader, who is a writer, and a dancer too. So going ahead, name your favorite dessert.
I think I'm just mad with chocolate ganache. I can't. That rules me over. So definitely, a chocolate ganache is something that really helps me.
Right. Here goes the next one. What is your favorite attire?
Anything comfortable. That is, I don't like to be too much in formals, but I think a nice formal shirt and a jeans, I think that's the kind of attire I'm the. Yeah.
Wonderful. So now, just last question in this section. Tell us one word that makes you smile.
Family. I think I'm a family-oriented person. So if I can see my family together, I think I'm the happiest.
Definitely, family is the biggest asset we all have.
Yeah. I think they are the ones who really help you, because the kind of work I do and the amount of time and effort that goes into it, it cannot happen if you family support. And especially, I believe for a woman entrepreneur, your success lies a lot on your family support. And because you have a family, you have a child, and it's wonderful to. My family is my backbone. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I can so very relate to this, that having two kids at home, someone is taking care of them so that I can peacefully work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can definitely agree to you.
That I think that's a breather. That's a breather when you know your child is in safe hand, and then you can go out and work. And I believe that for every woman, somewhere if we can. I'm really inspired by Indra Nui, when she says that, leave your guilt at home sometimes, because success does come with its own guilty trips and guilty pleasures, but it also leaves a big mark. So I always believe in it's better that people don't remember you for your personality or for your looks or for what car you're driving in, but if they rather remember you for the work that you had done, that is the kind of impact that world will remember. So I personally believe that's the way to go. Like,
so true, ma'am. And I really like that point of view where you said, let your work speak for yourself.
yeah.
Automatically, your name already, people get to know you when your work or speaks your name. So that is something we almost aspire for. We should work in such a manner that our work gives us recognition.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think while we all are in, and when we from the corporate structures, or really when we really move into the real world outside, there will be people who will give you loads of lessons in life, and I think just instead of taking them as a baggage, if you take them as a learning and you just move ahead, that is where your success story starts. So definitely, it's all about the work that you do, the person you are at your heart, the way you think, the way you act. That is going to be the factor of success, or I will say, happiness in your life for sure.
Absolutely, ma'am. So on this note, I would also like to know from you. We all look for inspiration from someone or the other. We all have that one person whose ideologies we can follow when we are in trouble. So I would like to know from you that one person in your life, an educator, who inspires you in your this education journey.
So, trust me that I will not say one person. Really, I don't have one particular person who does that. I'm somebody who takes learning a lot of people that I meet on my way of this life. But I think one person, if I have to name from the education industry, it is Mrs. Meera Balachandran. She's somebody who has been for years. When I joined Educom, that was like years and years back. Trust me, I was a young girl who had just moved out of teaching, a few grades in the school and understanding the corporate structure, how to make training modules. She had really taught me everything the way you teach a child holding a pen. And the kind of persona she has and the kind of work she has done in the industry, I think I have learned a lot from her. Apart from her, I think my dad, my father has been one of those persons who had lived his life he's built himself from scratch, without help from anybody else. So he aspires me to be an entrepreneur, but at the same point of time, he has been a very socially active person. So he believes that he's believed that you can't rear a world if you can't rear a family. If you can't rear the people around you well. I think that inspires me a lot. And my husband, I think he somehow had instilled a habit in me of taking risk. And I think that risk-taking ability in life is something that really takes you a long way. So I really pick up a lot from a lot of people that I meet. I think that has become a very unconscious thing in me to pick up the best and learn the best from everybody that I meet around. I keep some, I let go some, but at the same point of time, I think these three people have really left a very big impact in my life. Without them, probably I would have been a different person if they wouldn't have been in my life. So yes, these three I can really, depend upon.
So wonderful to know, ma'am. For if I sum up, it's like believe in yourself, be open to learning. There's inspiration around you. It's up to you how you take it. Take the
Absolutely,
best
absolutely.
and let it follow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this brings to me to the last question of the show. This is called viewer's choice question. There are a lot of parents and viewers who keep sending us the questions. So this one is, what can school do to curb the tuition menace, the tuition classes? Every kids are just going for it. And now you are completely digital. Now school has come to home. So what about tuitions?
So, let me just put it that way. When you send your child to tuition at that point of time, why do you send your child for tuition? Let's try to understand. Probably your child is not understanding what's happening in the school. That could be the first thing. The second thing is probably you as a parent don't know how to deal with that subject, or that particular set of class, and it's fine. We can't be dealing with everything in our lives. Now, at this point of time, if your school is not supportive enough to get up and say, I can give extra class to the child, I can help the child work on his skill, I can help the child go achieve at his own pace, then there is something wrong at the you and your child is. What you need to really do to control this tuition menace and spending extra penny with, I don't know how much of fat and fun and results you get out of it, but picking up those schools, picking up those educators for your children who can help your children learn at their own pace. When in a classroom, your child can answer, when in a classroom, your child can ask questions. It's a thing, sometimes we really go back to our children and very unknowingly we tell them, pay attention, listen to ma'am, don't interrupt in between. That's not the best that we can do for our children. Let your children ask. The more they inquire, the more they ask, the more curious they are, the more they will learn. We want this tuition menace to end. I think it's very, very important that you reach out to your school and see, is the school allowing your child to ask questions? Is your teacher responding to the queries of your children? Is the school responsive to the queries of the parents? Are they ready to give extra classes? Are they ready to give extra timing when required? Also, we always see artificial intelligence in a very and not in the best of light, but it is really something that has been made by human beings, right? And it can be used to the best of capability for human beings. So having solutions which have artificial intelligence integrated into it in such a way that it helps your child move as per his skill level, as per his pace. Right? So if a child gives an answer to a question and that answer is incorrect, the AI should be able to detect it and then give him another question to give him another chance for it. If it is still incorrect, the AI should be able to bring back the child to a concept to help understand what he's unable to do. And at this point of time, the child should not realize that he's coming a level down or a base down or a class down. So identification of learning gaps schools by the educators, help from the technology, and then moving towards your children's goals, helping identifying goals with your children. This all can actually take away the tuition menace. So probably as parents we need to be more informative. As parents we need to be more demanding. Even as an I will say as parents, we really need to get demanding. It's okay to just, write to principal and say, I want to understand this. It's fine. Talk to an educator, understand why it goes, how it goes, and that can take it a long way. So we can definitely curb this tuition menace if the schools are supportive. That's really the way to go.
So, I think a clear line of communication between school and parent and a transparent environment coupled with the power of technology is something if all unite together, then we can definitely see a decrease in this tuition maintenance, And yes, another thing, the expectation from the end of parents, they always want their students to score better and better. That should also be somewhere on the parents front. It should be somewhere, need to be tackled with, because they just want, if I put them in additional classes, they will score better. It's not that.
Ideally as parents, what we really need to, even if we are an educator, we are parents at the same point of time. As parents, what we really need to understand is that your child cannot be the best at every single subject, every single competency, We will have to figure out what works out the best for a child, and we have to move a direction. Please give all the exposure to your children. I always say that. Give them as much exposure as you want, but let them pick and choose. You can't be the only defining factor in your child's life to say that you have to do this, you have to become this. And, I understand, a lot of back and tell us, ma'am, but university mein admission lene ke liye, so we need this much marks, right? But does it define the success of the child? I might come out from the college, but I might not be a good speaker. I might not turn out to be a good team leader. And then even after that, even after being from the best college, I will not be successful. Every IIT doesn't land up with a crores package. So we have to, as parents, we really need to understand the need of the time. As parents, we really need to come down to the fact and say what our children are and what they want to become, and move them through that way. Please help them through it. And as schools, let's open our arms to our parents. Let's not look at them as our consumers. And I'm using this word consciously. Let's not make this a place where it's completely about, a market, a business transaction. Education can never be a business transaction. There's a lot of human being, children, emotions, everything attached to it. So I think schools really need to open up its arms towards criticism. Schools really need to open up to thinking to the parents, listening to the parents. Schools communicate one-on-one. It is, I know even in the best school, it's so hard for a parent to reach to the principal's desk and talk to her. Why? I really wonder why, So it's really, really important that we really need to balance that parent and the school act together, and the lot of menaces around can really curb down.
Wonderfully explained, ma'am. If this is brought to practice, we'll be seeing a drastic drop in the tuition classes registration.
Absolutely. And I think that's what the aim is. I just want that every child that passes out or moves out of my school every single day, he should be, so happy about what he's learning and how he's learning, that he should come back to his work on his own. He should come back to his classes on his own. He should look at his own timetable without the parent telling him it's 9:40 and you need to join your class. Yeah. That if we can achieve that, I think then we have gone a long way ahead.
Absolutely, ma'am. So it was really, really an insightful discussion with you. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, sharing your vision, ideas, and thoughts, and guiding us how to be a better parent, how to make ultimate best use of technology, and how you can, get your child exposed to multiple avenues available today. It's not only about academics and marks. It was really an enriching session, ma'am. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Seema. Thank you so much for bringing me in here, and thank you to everyone who would be viewing this sometime after this now. But thank you so much, and this really brings me to a point where all I can say is that let's just remember there is life still going on, and whatever be, just keep your spirits high, and we are all going to stay through this. Thank you so much, Seema. Thank you so much.